we go from average to awesome. I want to welcome you to our fourth module in our Nobody is Born Average course. Today, we're going to be talking about resistance. Now, there is a force that consistently works to keep you from reaching your full potential. It's a force that's similar to gravity that pulls at your potential, trying to kind of keep you from rising up and becoming what you were created to become. And it is the force that I call resistance. And this one word can have both a positive and a negative effect on your life if you allow it to. Let me explain. Life was created to be lived in tension. Tension, Tension. It is what truly produces greatness in us, but only when it is recognized as being such. That tension is what I refer to as resistance. Now, as I mentioned before, resistance has both a positive and a negative effect on us, and it all boils down to how you view this force called resistance that works in your life. Now, some don't see it as a positive, and because of that, they push back from the very source that is attempting to stretch them to rise above this thing called average. They repel against the change agent that is used to grow us and expand our potential. And as a result, they end up living lives of mediocrity that really leaves them kind of empty and dissatisfied with life. Now, there are two ways, in my opinion, there are two ways that you can look at resistance when it's at work in your life. The first one is it is that which keeps you from rising above mediocrity. It's that oppressive force. It's that tension that is keeping you from going above the status quo. But it is also, the second thing I see is it's that which resists the inertia that is trying to hold you down. You choose how you view it. I can only warn you that pressures and struggles and trials and difficulties and unforeseen circumstances are not always things to push away from. Sometimes we look at the bad things of life and we want them out of the picture. But when you look at this as something that you probably shouldn't push away from, and the reason is because they are the very agents that cause you to leave average in the dust and fulfill what you were created to fulfill. Now, you know my story. If you're watching this, you've been into this course now for the last 3 or 4 lessons. I never would have the approach that I have to life if it wasn't for the way I was born and the things that I have faced. Now, let's break this down for us to get a full understanding of where we need to go in this lesson. This lesson may be the one that you go back to time and time again because you are going to deal with this the rest of your life. Now, we have established the fact that life is all about growth, rising above the mundane, leaving the land of average behind and stepping into a place of impact and influence. However, growth stops the minute you lose the tension between where you are and where you could be, or where God intends for your life to go. There's a quote by a guy by the name of Somerset Maugham that said this: "Only a mediocre person is always at his best." If it is your desire to get beyond average, which I think it is, to step past the confines of mediocrity, then you must recognize that God's gift to you and I is potential, and our gift back to God is developing that potential. And to do that, you and I must go beyond the realm of living in what we have talked about in past lessons, these comfort zones. Now, as I mentioned, we discussed comfort zones recently, but let me get a little farther into these comfort zones in this lesson on resistance. I am a firm believer that life begins at the end of our comfort zones. When I look back at the last 30 years of my life, I realize that much of the progress that I have made personally has come as a result of being stretched, recognizing the tension there was between where I was and where I needed to be, and how to fully step into that and allow it to form something in me. Now, I hold in my hand a couple rubber bands here, and there are so many uses for a rubber band. We could probably make a list of 20 or 30 things right now that you use rubber bands for, to keep papers together, to fix your hair if you had any hair, whatever. There's a lot of uses for rubber bands. But what is the one thing all the uses of a rubber band have in common? Rubber bands are only useful when they are stretched. Now, I'm a little short-handed, so I have to do it like this, but a rubber band is only useful when it is stretched. And I think the same thing is true with you and I. We are only useful when we are stretched outside of the areas of our comfort. Now, here are a few things I want to present to you in this lesson. Number one, no one likes to be stretched, but usefulness only comes from the stretching. Now, most of us, if truth be told, only use a fraction of our ability, and rarely do we reach our full potential. We like the confines of the comfortable, and we don't like the tension that comes when we step out of that comfort zone. We don't like the resistance. We don't like the pushback. Too many people are willing to settle for average in their lives, and I believe that's not what you desire, because you're part of this course. I recently read a description of average that was written by a guy by the name of Edmund Godot that I think applies to what I'm trying to describe. Listen to this. This is pretty cool. Average is what the failures claim to be when their family and friends ask them why they are not more successful. Average is the top of the bottom, the best of the worst, the bottom of the top, the worst of the best. Which one of these are you? Average means being run-of-the-mill, mediocre, insignificant, and also ran a non-entity. Being average is a lazy person's cop-out. It's lacking the guts to take a stand in life. It's living by default. Being average is to take up space for no purpose, to take the trip through life but never pay the fare, to return no interest for God's investment in you. Being average is to pass one's life away with time rather than to pass one's time away with life. It's to kill time rather than to work it to death. To be average is to be forgotten once you pass from this life. The successful are remembered for their contributions. The failures are remembered because they tried, but the average, the silent majority, is just forgotten. To be average is to commit the greatest crime one can against oneself, humanity, and one's God. The saddest epitaph is this: here lies Mr. and Miss Average. Here lies the remains of what might have been, except for their belief that they were only average. If you don't allow yourself to be stretched, this is the second point I want to make. If you don't allow yourself to be stretched and settle for the status quo, it will ultimately lead you to becoming dissatisfied with life. My greatest fear for you is that you will settle into a comfort zone and choose comfort over potential. It's easy to fall into these familiar patterns and habits, just doing the same thing with your life that you've always done, getting the same result that you've always gotten. I remember in high school, I worked for a pizza company called Papa Kelsey's and Subs, Twin Falls, Idaho. A few years after I'd graduated, I think it was 10 years, I went back. We were on a family trip. I wanted to show my kids where I went to high school, and I can't remember for sure when it was, but they were quite a bit younger. But I went back to the Papa Kelsey's that I had worked at years later. And there was the same guy that I went to high school with, that I worked with at Papa Kelsey's, that was still there doing the exact same thing he did when I worked there. I decided that pizza delivery was not going to be in my future. I got tired of coming home smelling like mozzarella cheese. But this guy, and maybe that's what he wanted to do with his life, stayed in the same familiar pattern. It feels good to stay in a comfort zone. It feels good to stay in that place where everything is comfortable. Feathers aren't ruffled. Nobody is calling you out. But if you stay there, it is going to lead to you just being a person of mediocrity, and eventually you'll be dissatisfied with life. Psychologist Abraham Maslow stated, if you plan on being anything less than you are capable of being, you will probably be unhappy all the days of your life. You have to lean into life in such a way that you possess the courage to push yourself out of your comfort zone and break out of the mindset of mediocrity. You got to be willing to leave the confines of the comfortable, that which makes you feel safe and secure, and give up all of the excuses that we discussed in our last module and just keep pushing forward. You have to accept the tension, the resistance. You have to face it and realize that that resistance and that tension is there to get you to stretch towards your potential. Now, when it comes to potential, when it comes to reaching beyond the average and the status quo, it always begins from the inside out. That's where it starts, inside out. I recently read an old book by an author by the name of James Allen. It was a book entitled As a Man Thinketh. And in that book, the author states this: your circumstances may be uncongenial, but they shall not remain so if you but perceive an ideal and strive to reach it. And this is the part that I want to really hammer down. You cannot travel within and stand still without. That's a powerful statement. You cannot travel within and stand still without. If you reach for your potential by allowing yourself to grow from the inside out, you will see progress. You will get closer to your purpose. Now, let me make it very plain for you. You and I must remember that our current situation, those situations in life, are mainly the result of the choices that we have made and the actions we do or fail to take. You have choices to make with what you are going to do with the tension, the resistance that resides in your life. You can choose to let it push you back and you can stay average. You can accept it for what it is. You can make excuses why you are the way you are or why you are where you are. You can get defensive about your lack of growth. You can cover it up. You can pretend to be someone that you're not. You can even explain it away, or you can choose to change it, or you can grow from it. You can become what you're supposed to be, and you can forge a brand new path towards your purpose. You choose. So how do we find the internal impetus for stretching beyond where we are? I think first of all, we must measure what we are currently doing and where we currently are against what we are capable of and where we could actually be if we tried. In other words, you have to measure yourself against yourself. Tension, resistance, stretching, and advancing beyond average, it does require change in your life. Growth doesn't come from staying inside your comfortable zone that you've created. This is a powerful statement I heard someone say one time that I firmly believe in. You can't improve and avoid. This is a powerful statement I heard someone say one time that I firmly believe in. You can't improve and avoid change at the same time. So at this point, you may be asking yourself the question, okay, how do I grab a hold of change and kick myself out of my comfort zones? How do I kick it to the curb? And how do I allow myself to get out of this arena that I have camped in of nothing but mediocrity, status quo, average, whatever? Well, first of all, you need to remember there is no future in the past. Quit looking over your shoulder, eyeing where you have been. It's difficult to focus on yesterday while changing today. Author Alan Cohen said, to grow, you must be willing to let your present and future be totally unlike your past. Your history is not your destiny. Secondly, you have to keep working on your ability to reach beyond where you are. What does that require? Well, it requires risk, and risk is something that the comfortable and the mediocre don't enjoy experiencing. Risk may be risky, but it also has advantages. You tend to learn more, and you tend to learn much faster than those who refuse to step into the dimension of risk. Now, I have discovered that the greatest seasons of growth in my life personally have come when I risked something, when I stretched, when I've done things that I've never done before, when I pushed myself beyond what I thought were my limits, when I stepped beyond what was comfortable to me. I love what George Eliot said. It's never too late to be what you might have been. Let me give you one more thing, then we'll wrap this lesson up. You must allow this resistance, this tension, this stretching to become a part of your life every single day. Because when you stop stretching, I believe you stop really living. Mark Twain, one of my favorite authors, spoke about an acquaintance that he had. He made this statement. He died at 30. They buried him at 60. He died long before he actually died. He quit living long before he passed away. You may keep on breathing. You may keep on going to work. You may be doing your thing, but you are dead on the inside and dead to your greatest opportunities and possibilities. Rabbi Nachman Bratslav said this, if you won't be better tomorrow than you were today, then what do you need tomorrow for? I, for one, am not through growing. I'm not. I still have so far to go, but there is a passion and a drive within me that I hope I am bringing across to you in this course that says, don't settle for the status quo. Don't remain mediocre. You are not born average. Keep stretching, even though it's difficult, and even though you feel resistance from others, from even yourself, from life, from circumstances. Don't ever stop being stretched, because the potential that you possess is greater than the resistance trying to hold you back. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure you get into your workbook. I can't wait for our next lessons right here in Nobody is Born Average.